Do you ever look at people online and think you're too old to compete with them? Maybe you see a 22-year-old creating videos and they've got all the latest camera gear, all the latest computer gear, and they know every piece of technology. They seem completely comfortable talking in the camera, and you think, what chance have I got? Today I want to challenge that thinking, because after everything I've learned, I don't believe getting older is necessarily your biggest disadvantage. I think it could actually be your biggest advantage, and I'm not saying that just to make you feel better. I'm saying it because there's something you have at 50 or 60 or 70 or beyond that somebody in their 20s just simply don't have or can't manufacture overnight. Today, I want to explain why that matters. Hi, I'm Steve Duncan, and if you've watched my videos before, you will know my story. If not, I'll have just a quick run through for those of you who don't know me. For most of my working life, I've worked at sea. And when you've spent years working in that environment, you learn something very quickly. You learn that the experience really matters. You can read manuals and you can study procedures. You can watch someone else do something, but there's a difference between knowing something in theory and actually having lived it or lived through it. I've experienced loads of difficult situations. I've had loads of responsibilities. I've had to make big decisions. I've had to keep going when things weren't necessarily easy. And I've learned lessons that didn't come from a classroom. They came from life. For a long time though, I didn't think those experiences as something valuable that I could use online. I thought online success belonged to the younger people. I don't have to compete with a 25-year-old at being 25. I can just be me. I can just be Stephen. And that's enough. Think about everything you've learned during your life. Maybe you've worked in construction, or maybe you've been a nurse, or maybe you're a truck driver, or you've maybe even run your own business. Or if you're a mother, you've raised children, or a father for that matter. Maybe you spent decades in an office or worked away from home just like me. Maybe you've experienced failure. Maybe you've experienced success. And maybe you've made financial mistakes. Maybe you just made these decisions you wish you could go back and change. All of those experiences have something in common. They taught you something, and that's somebody younger may actually want to hear what you've learned. That's where I think people over 50 sometimes make a mistake. They think I've got nothing special to say. I was exactly in that position. What seems ordinary to you and to me at one time might be incredible or incredibly valuable to somebody else. Look, here's another thing that I've learned. You don't have to present yourself as the world's greatest expert. I'm not. I'm still learning. I'm learning the same as you. I'm building my YouTube channel. I'm learning still about affiliate marketing. I'm learning all the things that work, or some things that works. And I'm making many mistakes and have made mistakes. And I'm sharing the journey And I think there's something powerful about saying, I'm not 10 years ahead of you, I'm just 1 or 2 steps ahead. And here's what I've discovered. That's much more approachable. Because sometimes people don't want to listen to somebody standing on a stage telling them how successful they are. They want someone sitting beside them saying, don't worry, I struggled with this too. Let me show you what I did. That's the person I want to be. When you spent enough time at sea, you learn that not to panic every time conditions change. Look, the weather changes and the sea changes. The circumstances around you change. But experience teaches you to respond differently. The experienced version thinks, okay, what do we need to do next? And that's a skill, really. Life experience teaches you how to deal with uncertainty. And believe me, building something online comes with plenty of uncertainty. You will have days when your videos get very few views. I've had them myself. You'll wonder whether your title was wrong. I think about that all the time. I definitely think about that all the time, but I try to keep it simple. You'll wonder whether anybody cares. That's a thing. You do wonder if anyone cares. And I've just had all these thoughts myself, the same as you. But perhaps one of the advantages of getting older is that you've already been through difficult periods before. You've probably survived things like I have. You've started again before. You've adapted before. So maybe you're better prepared for this journey than you actually think you are. There's something else I want to tell you, I want you to hear. If you're over 50 and you're thinking about starting an online business, you don't need to know everything. I certainly didn't and certainly don't. You need to know enough to make or take your next step. And that's all. When I first started learning this stuff, I didn't understand everything. But I learned one thing, then another. And eventually, things that once seemed really complicated started becoming quite familiar. And that's how learning works. You don't swallow the entire elephant, but you take one bite at a time. That's it. One bite at a time. Look, this is one of the biggest traps in YouTube. You see someone with 100,000 subscribers and compare them with your first 100. And it's not a far comparison. You're looking at their years of experience and comparing it with your beginning. Instead, compare yourself with yourself. Ask, is today's video better than the one I made 6 months ago? If it is, you're progressing just fine. Maybe you're speaking more naturally. Maybe your thumbnails are getting a bit better and improving. Maybe your titles are getting better. Maybe you're more comfortable in front of that camera. Or maybe you understand your audience a little better. Those improvements really matter. One small step is what I'd like to see you do. If you've been telling yourself, I'm too old, I want you to change that sentence instead and say, I'm experienced enough to start. That's a completely different mindset. And then take that one small action. Write down 3 things you learned during your life that somebody else might find useful. That's it. 3 things. You might be surprised by what you come up with. And those 3 things could become 3 actual videos. Look, the bigger message, I don't believe getting older means opportunities disappear. I think some opportunities actually become more meaningful. When you're younger, you're often trying to prove yourself, right? As you get older, you may start thinking completely differently. You start thinking what really matters and how do I want to spend my time? What do I want the next chapter of my life to look like? Those powerful questions, and I think YouTube can be a wonderful place to share those conversations. Not because you have all the answers, but because you've lived through enough life to have something worth saying. So if you're sitting there thinking, I'm too old, I want you to stop for a moment, look at everything else you've survived, and look at everything you've learned, look at the mistakes you've made, and look at the people that you've helped. Also, look at the skills that you've developed in that time, and look at the stories that you can tell that you've learned through that time. Then ask yourself, maybe my age isn't the problem. Maybe it's the thing that makes my story worth hearing. Because somebody out there doesn't need another 25-year-old telling them how to get rich on wine. They might need someone like you. Someone who's been through life, someone who's made these mistakes, and someone who's still learning. Someone who's still willing to say, I'm figuring this out too. Come along with me. And that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm not pretending to have all the answers or everything figured out. I'm simply building the next chapter of my life. One video, one lesson, and one small step at a time. So if you're over 50 and you've been thinking about starting something new, I hope this video has given you a little confidence. And if it has, I'd love you to subscribe and come along, follow on my journey. Because I believe that the best years don't necessarily have to be behind you. I'd love for you to believe that the best years don't necessarily have to be behind you. Your experience might be the very thing that makes your next chapter your most meaningful one yet. You're not too old. Thanks for watching. There may be a video in the corner here somewhere, one of these two corners. Please click on that, get the next video, or when you subscribe, you can get the 2 videos that I put out every week. And thanks for watching again, and take care, and I'll see you on the next video. Thank you. Steve out.